Yeah, I get it. Scheduling is weird. Now that the NHL is up in full flight, we have a bunch of videos that I wanted to make that I'm going to have to sporadically spread out over the next few days because I don't want to interfere with early games going on around the league. But either way, the reason we're making this video now is because the Carolina Hurricanes have themselves a game against the LA Kings later this evening. And it's going to be evening Pacific time, which makes this kind of align nicely for the afternoon video of the day, because what I wanted to do was focus on a Carolina Hurricanes player that has a lot more to show for at the NHL level. You already read the title, you saw the thumbnail. You know that today we are talking about former third overall pick in the 2018 NHL Entry Draft, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and how he feels himself that he has gotten so much better to the point that there was an article written about it. So, let's go over the profile before we get underway with this video. Kotkaniemi is now 23 years old, which is kind of nuts considering that he was the first ever person, and I say person and not hockey player, first ever person born in the 2000s and beyond to play a game in one of the big four sports leagues, NHL, NBA, NFL, and MLB. He was a third overall pick back in the 2018 draft by the Montreal Canadiens. He was never really amazing with the Montreal Canadiens and eventually got offer sheeted and signed on to Carolina. They gave him an extraordinarily big deal for 1 year, $6 million plus, and then he had signed a really long extension afterwards, taking him to the end of 2030 at $4.82 million a year. Good on him for guaranteeing the bag, but of course, for a guy taken third overall above names like Brady Tkachuk, Quinn Hughes, etc., there certainly is a level of expectations that was not fulfilled here. So for Montreal Canadiens fans, firstly, y'all getting ticked off that Kotkaniemi was never great. Okay, that's not that bad. But also getting ticked off that Kotkaniemi signed the offer sheet in the first place. I mean, you can't really go out there and blame the guy for signing a contract that was well worth above his pay grade. More so it was the Carolina Hurricanes that just wanted to get that done and send a big FU to Marc Bergevin and the Habs. But either way, all past dramas aside, Jesperi Kotkaniemi is a decent to okay NHL player now. This previous season in 22-23, he had 43 points in 82 games played, the best season he has ever had, and the first season for him to produce this much points since his rookie year in 2018-19, where he had 34 points in 79 games. Kotkaniemi, after spending a little bit of time going up and down with the AHL, he was with the Liga in 2020-2021, eventually was a part of the Canadiens in their finals run, and subsequently was offer sheeted afterwards. But now, when you take a look at Kotkaniemi, we had ourselves one game played by the Hurricanes on opening night against the Ottawa Senators, where Kotkaniemi scored himself an assist, and it was a really nice one too. His 1 point so far in the 23-24 season was a short-handed assist where he takes the puck at the red line, he dumps it into the opposing corner, it's fed around the boards once again by Seth Jarvis for Kotkaniemi on the far side, he holds the puck a bit on the boards, he comes out to the half wall, and then he backhand sauces it right through the defender's legs to get it over to Slavin, who puts it in the back of the net. Kotkaniemi's first assist in the NHL this year was a beautiful short-handed marker, and he's up to 1 point in one game because of it. To continue on this topic, though, what I wanted to do was turn your attention to this article published on Thursday on tvasports.ca. Now, I get it, I know what you're thinking. TVA Sports, of course, this is a Montreal, Quebec-based news outlet, so anything that they publish usually relates to the Habs if you're looking at hockey stories here. And for Jesperi Kotkaniemi, this piece from Thursday highlights how he thinks he has gotten better. Link is going to be in the description if you want to go ahead and read this article yourself. It was in French, but I used the Google machine to translate it into English. The opening paragraph reads this: Jesperi Kotkaniemi believes he can establish himself as an impact player in 23-24. I gained mass and got stronger. I improved my skating and won more battles. This is what will be my best asset for the future, said Kotkaniemi, whose comments were reported by the Hockey News. Last year, Kotkaniemi had the chance to play with better hockey players. It's enormous. He played a lot more than the previous year, said head coach Rod Brind'Amour. Naturally, it helps increase the numbers, and that's usually what everyone is looking at. That doesn't necessarily mean he's playing better or not better. He could play very well, but he just wasn't putting up points. You have to be careful and not judge on that basis, but you could tell, especially in the second half of last year, that he was a better player and the stats confirmed it. Brind'Amour says this, that I think he understands the game a little better too. He has also matured physically, he is still young, we've talked about it before, there's still room for improvement in all areas, but I think he is moving in the right direction. And this is kind of why I wanted to make this video, because for Jesperi Kotkaniemi, a guy who was thrusted into pretty unrealistic expectations from a Habs fanbase that was clawing at the grip to make sure they didn't make a mistake in choosing this guy over Brady Tkachuk or Quinn Hughes, there were so many expectations on this guy. The Habs needed a center. It's why they took him in the first place, even though most scouting outlets had Kotkaniemi as a guy who would probably be taken somewhere around 10 plus overall, let alone 3. So you can't really blame Kotkaniemi himself for being the player taken where he was at, and you can't blame him as well for signing that offer sheet with Carolina in the first place. If somebody offers you $6 million and you know for certain that you're more of a $2-3 million guy, why would you not take that $6 million deal? Sure, it's a slight to the Canadiens team that gave you your opportunity, but at the same time, the fans and everybody had been so harsh on Kotkaniemi the entire time he was here that sometimes being the most selfish person in your life isn't a bad thing, especially when you can set yourselves up with a $6 million payday. Few million dollars over what you're actually worth. That's totally fine. So for Kotkaniemi to actually develop and grow with the Carolina system in the way that he has, where he's getting shorthanded assists, he's playing pretty nicely, he's making feathery passes, and he's getting points, this is what we want to see. Sure, he may never become an 82-point guy, maybe he never becomes the next Alex Barkov, because everybody was talking about how Kotkaniemi outscored Barkov at 18 years old in the NHL when they both played in their first seasons. If Kotkaniemi never becomes Barkov, that is totally okay, but if he becomes a good player just in general, that's fine too. Let's go back over and see what Kotkaniemi himself says about his game. I want to take a step forward from last year. I hope to get off to a better start points-wise and just try to be a better version of myself. On Wednesday, during the first game, he had skated between Necas and Teravainen, and he recorded an assist in the 5-3 win. So there you go, he's playing with some pretty good players. I mean, last year, if you want to take a look at Necas and Teravainen, these guys were some of the more productive players on the team. Necas had 71 points, Teravainen had 37, but he played a significantly fewer amount of games played. Kotkaniemi, of course, having the 43-point marker last season was pretty good too, but if anything is to be believed, and he is actually getting better, then as his career goes on, he's only 23 years old right now, who knows how many points this guy is going to be able to produce. And if he ends up getting like a 60-65 point year, maybe even if he breaks 70, my question all of a sudden becomes, how do the Montreal Canadiens fans and the team feel about this? Because after Kotkaniemi was signed to that offer sheet, a lot of the compensation that was acquired in that transaction was used to trade for Christian Dvorak. And Dvorak, I mean, he's not playing right now, but he is a player that is maybe on the trade block, maybe not. He's probably going to be on the move sometime soon. The Canadiens didn't really get much out of Kotkaniemi when you take a look at the grand scheme of how Dvorak has played for this team. For Kotkaniemi, though, not saying it's guaranteed that he gets 50 or 60 points, but he's definitely on pace to having a better season than any other season he's had in the past. So at 23 years old, where exactly does your opinion lie if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan with this player, and how do you think that changes the way the Canadiens should have navigated his situation and development in the NHL? Thoughts in the comment section below about Jesperi Kotkaniemi. If you're a Carolina Hurricanes fan too, then let me know your thoughts on how this guy has played. What do you think his realistic ceiling is? What are your expectations for him? And if he continues to play with these guys, he plays with Seth Jarvis on the penalty kill, he plays with Teravainen, there's a Finnish connection there. What are your thoughts on how Kotkaniemi is going to be over the span of this contract? It goes on till 2030. He's going to be, 29, turning 30 in that summer when that contract expires. He's 23 right now, so there is so much time for Jesperi Kotkaniemi to become great. Maybe not Barkov great, but great just in general. What are your thoughts on how that's going to go, and do you think there is a lot of value here from this acquisition when you look at things 3 years later or 2 years later, whatever it was, from the offer sheet a few years ago? So, thoughts in the comment section below about Jesperi Kotkaniemi. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.